What's up, everyone? Welcome to Behind the Business. My name is Ari Meyerowitz, and I'll be your host for the next hour. For the last 2 years, I've been a social media representative at 1824. If you're new here, 1824 is Universal Music Group's culture marketing and content strategy team. We focus on the connection of artists and brands directly to fans through storytelling and experiences. So we have a ton of different offerings: content creation, experiences, creator and brand partnerships, and of course, live streaming on UMG's official Twitch channel, 3.5. So we have a very special episode today. I'm very excited to introduce our two amazing guests. Thank you for being here today. Joined with us is Miles Sheft, the manager of sports marketing at Interscope and Capitol Records, and Natasha Zemlin, director of sports and gaming marketing at Interscope and Capitol Label Group. As a student who's always been fascinated by the intersection of music and sports, and quite frankly can't decide which industry I want to work in down the line, I'm super excited to be here to interview the two of them. And again, they have a lot of experience combined between the two of them. So we're going to pick their brains a bit. We have a ton of questions, but remember, ask your questions in the chat. We're going to make the most out of this call today. So I want to start off by opening the floor to both of you. I know you two have positions that I think a lot of people would consider to be a dream job, and they might not even know it exists. So Miles, we'll start with you. Give us a quick intro about what your day-to-day looks like, and then Natasha, feel free to follow, but the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Ari. Pleasure to be here. Excited to be able to contribute to a really cool series and a really cool project. As you said, I work in the sports marketing space at Interscope Capitol. I've been at Interscope Records for, over 5 years in various roles, relatively new to the sports and gaming team. And in my role, I focus on connections between our artists, our music, our catalog, and athletes of all levels, of all sports, men's, women, and finding interesting ways to collaborate between us. So oftentimes that is content focused. This role bridges at times into digital marketing, social media marketing, viral marketing in creative ways, but also still dips into the more traditional sync licensing roles that our team takes care of for sports and gaming related projects. But yeah, that's it. The day-to-day changes, as I'm sure we'll get into. It's never what we anticipate, which is both the best and the worst part at times of this job. But it keeps us on our toes and keeps every day exciting. So pumped to be here and really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I'm Natasha, Director of Sports and Gaming at Interscope Capitol. I've been in this department kind of since it was born almost 10 years ago, which is crazy. This was my first job out of college. And I've kind of it started as a sync role across, all the spaces: film, TV, brand partnerships, and sports. And we kind of saw an opportunity in an untapped lane in the music business and created what now is the behemoth of the sports and gaming department. We're a very non-traditional department in the music industry. So it's fun to be able to be guinea pigs. There's no roadmap for us that's laid out on what it looks like compared to other of those, core teams at a label: marketing, A&R, creative. So we get to have fun. Like Miles said, no day is the same. We're talking to partners across the leagues, every single league. No sport is off limits to us. We're speaking with all the networks, all the agencies, all the videographers. It's a fun role. It's a crazy role that looks different, based off of the season, what sports are in seasons, what video games are dropping, what artists are tied to, different teams and affinities, and what games they like to play, and what world building we're working on for our artists. So it's a crazy role, but it's a fun one. So we're both really excited to talk to everyone about it today.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear any more. And I want to start off a little bit talking about gaming. I mean, growing up, the only intersection between gaming and music that I knew was, you listen to the soundtrack, and I look back on my older playlists, and it would just be different songs from Madden 11 that it made sense. Guns N' Roses, they would hype up your experience playing the game, me being a 6-year-old then. It just made sense though. And I know that still plays a big role. So not discrediting that, but we're now seeing things like virtual concerts and Roblox and Fortnite skins with different artists and just these insane partnerships. So I wanted to know, when you're looking at a new project, how do these come to life? Is it with the artist? Is it with you? What is it?
There's definitely a few different entry points when thinking about campaigns in the gaming space. Obviously, if there's an artist that is a huge fan of or plays video games, it makes our job a lot easier because that makes the relationship authentic. But, then you pay attention to trends. If we're talking about like a Fortnite emote or putting a dance in Roblox, it's like what trend is popping off online that the digital team are pouring gas on that we can then turn to our gaming partners and say, this, look at these developers. Let's put this dance in the game, see what happens. We're putting product in game. We're doing, these massive icon campaigns with Fortnite around new music. So entry points can differ. Yes, it starts with an artist and their affinities, but also, looking at our release timelines and what matches up in the gaming development space. The development times in the gaming space are very, very long lead. So it's putting these campaigns together takes a lot of strategy and thought to make it line up with, at the end of the day, we want our artists to have a campaign that's fully integrated into their rollout and makes sense. So entry points start from anywhere. And those are fun to kind of ideate around as well, because, you could think of a song that fits best for a campaign, or there's a dance move, or there's a game coming out that the artist really likes. So let's kind of shift the timeline to make it align with that.
And I imagine that's a pretty quick turnaround. These trends and dances and songs, they can be in a window. What's the timeline like for that? Do you need to get on something like the week it drops?
Ideally, and that's kind of where we kind of get creative with how we can, reach out to maybe a freelance developer and have them create an emote for us that we just use digitally. That's not officially in the game, but 3 to 6 months when we can put an emote in Fortnite, we can still tie it back to it being in that ecosystem where we could have, turned it around a bit quicker, but you'll see it in Fortnite eventually.
I like that. That's cool. Myself, I had a locker room with a bunch of different random dances and songs that, you play them enough and then you're hearing them everywhere in the lobbies. I also want to talk a little bit more about some of the real world sports activations too. NBA Finals always has some cool syncs in it. Walk-up songs for baseball players. How do those happen? Has there ever been a time where maybe a player has requested some kind of athlete partnership for like a walk-up song thing, or do you have connections within the stadiums or the teams? How do those partnerships happen?
Miles, I'll let you take the player conversation first.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think similar to gaming, there are various entry points. There are various lead times, various timelines. Natasha will talk about, a league partnership, a kickoff campaign, an anthem campaign, which our team has secured many times over across different network sports partners. On the player side, it similarly can be a long lead conversation, or it can be something super quick. A huge part of my role in the athlete-artist connection is sort of rooted in what we all know as fans of music and sports, which is that there's so much authentic crossover between the two. And so many athletes want to be artists and so many artists want to be athletes. We lean into that. We see so much organic connection already happening, whether it's exactly like you said, an athlete who uses, one of our artist songs as a walk-up, posting, a post-game highlight using one of our songs. We love seeing that kind of organic connectivity. And oftentimes I'll use that as an entry point. If I see a player posting something or using one of our songs as a walk-up, as a great example, I'll reach out. I'll reach out directly. I'll talk to their agent. I'll talk to their manager. I'll talk to their best friend. However, wherever we can, create a connection and start to build off of that into something more, and start to explore something larger. There are absolutely opportunities for artists to create custom music, whether it's for a walk-up, whether it's for an anthem. I'll kick it back to Natasha because I know her and the rest of our team have helped organize these sort of sync writing camps, if you will, that lead to really cool sports-related music moments.
Yeah, I think over the years we've gone about it a few different ways, just as far as approaching teams and leagues and networks for campaigns. I think one of our ethos in our department is it's not just a sync, or it can start with a sync, but a sync or like one moment in a rollout, whether it's a sync moment or we have an artist courtside, or, you know, we have a project dropping that we have one piece tied to. We like to make it all encompassing. We like to kind of create a world of its own around whether it's a sync or that first moment. So, you know, if we've got a song that has a name drop for, this is one of my favorite projects that happened this year. Rob 49 released his single "What the Helly," and it was like, we call it lightning in a bottle, but that song came out right as NBA playoffs were happening, and he name drops Tyrese Halliburton on the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese ended up just like getting geeked out over his name drop in a song. I don't think he even knew who Rob 49 was. But he posted that to his socials, and I saw that, and I was like, there's something more that we can do. There's a lot more that we can do. There's so much that's untapped by, you know, just seeing this one moment organically happen online. I reached out to the Pacers. I held their hand in what a music license looks like, how to do it. They cleared the song for their socials. They put up like a promo for Game 4 of the finals on socials, and that went incredibly. We then took him to a game. We had him courtside, did a jersey swap with Tyrese. We gifted Tyrese a "What the Hally" shirt merch that we put out. And he ended up wearing it on the plane going to Milwaukee for Game 5, I think, of that series. So it kind of all just started snowballing, and things kept happening, and all the sports outlets were picking it up. We were sending all of that information to all of our network partners, being like, this song is moving in this ecosystem right now. Like there's a real cultural lane happening with the lyrics, with the song, with this player that is happening to hit every game winner at the last second of these playoff series and going into inevitably the finals. So we rode that wave for, I think, maybe 8 to 10 weeks. And that was something I never could have tried to plan ahead of time. It was an opportunity that we saw. You know, we could have noticed Tyrese posting it and been like, oh, what a sick thing. Like, that's awesome. But we took that opportunity to reach out to the team, reach out to Tyrese's videographer. We did so much came out of that one moment, and it really brought a new life, a new demo into that song and into Rob. And Rob had an amazing time. The Pacers were super happy with how everything kind of played out within those couple months. That was something that I couldn't have written on paper. That was just kind of a magical thing that happened. And I kind of use as a case study when speaking to teams that may not know how music licensing works, or may not know, you know, be as creative or willing to have fun with us on these marketing moments.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I also have an experience with that same song. You know, as a social media rep for 1824, we're in charge of finding all these cool moments too. And I would say I'm one of the people on the team who cares the most about sports. So when I saw the post-game interview of Tyrese Halliburton talking with Pascal Siakam about,
Yep.
I was just like, you know, I was name dropping the song, and you know, it was a great sound clip, and that was actually one of my best performing videos of the year, having like 400,000 views on it. And I was like, let's go. Awesome.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's so cool how stuff like that can just pop up. I do want to remind all the viewers, please feel free to send any questions that you guys have into the chat. They're gold mines of information, these two. So we're going to continue to pick their brains. And for the first one from the chat, we're going to get from Tori Coleman. And I want to know how both of you got interested in sports. What was your origin story?
My origin story is kind of hilarious to tell because it's so, you wouldn't expect it at all. Neither of my parents are from the States. My mom's from England, my dad's from Germany. So American sports in general was just nothing we ever paid attention to. We'd watch the Super Bowl because everyone watches the Super Bowl. Music is where my heart was. It's where my passion was. I grew up in high school and college just running. I'm from Long Beach, so I just would always be in LA going to shows, events, just chasing around like that life. And I loved it so much. I always said that I wanted to go on tour. That would be my dream job, but I've changed my mind since. And yeah, music is where I wanted to be. And I was going to say no to nothing. You know, there was no opportunity that I wasn't going to explore. And, you know, through the internships, through the temping, I landed as a temp in the creative licensing department at Interscope while I was still finishing up my last semester of college. and I wasn't going to say no. I didn't know much about licensing or what that world was. And at the time, like I mentioned before, that's kind of where the sports and gaming section lived within the label. It was just kind of like a sync aspect of the department. And I kind of just grew into this role. Our boss, the SVP of the department, he created his own lane to really build it out, and he took me with him. And I've garnered such a love for it. I think it's so much fun. I think the intersection between music and sports is more prevalent and at the forefront of culture than it ever has been. And it's been fun to kind of create that path continuously and have conversations like this to show people that it does exist, and it's important for sure.
Yeah, mine is, I guess, also a bit roundabout how I ended up here, but my love for sports was sort of natural from as long as I can remember. I've always been interested in sports, and not only sports, but the intersection between sports, music, film, TV, culture in general. I mean, some of my earliest memories of realizing how much I love sports was from watching movies that are related to sports. Remember the Titans, Miracle, Mighty Ducks, The Sandlot. Like, I kind of started to realize a lot of my favorite movies are sports related, and then started playing every sport. Similar to you, Ari, I have vivid memories of being a young kid. It wasn't Madden 11. It was more like Madden 2003, Madden 2004, not to date myself too much, but the soundtracks in those games were unbelievable, and led to me, again, I'm dating myself, but would lead to me going and buying CDs and buying albums and becoming fans of artists and bands. It was an incredible tool for discovery. As I was coming out of college and figuring out what exactly I wanted to do, more like what I crossing off the list of things I didn't want to do. I always had this passion for all these different sectors: music, sports, film, culture, and would talk to people and network and try and find roles that combined all of those different things. And I can't tell you how many conversations I had where people were like, that's not a thing. You know, you're going to have to pick one. You're going to have to get into a path. You're going to have to get into an industry. And that's that. I was lucky enough to get a job. My first job in the industry was in the mailroom of a talent agency, creative artist agency. The mailroom, I believe, still exists. It obviously did at the time. And I then ended up working for a traditional talent agent. So I was in that film and TV space for the first, few years in the industry, and learned so much before transitioning into music and taking a role at Interscope Records, and then starting to get all the different information, becoming a sponge about how the music industry works, particularly from the recorded industry side, from the label side. So then most recently, I had the opportunity to join Natasha and the rest of the team and sort of combine all of those initial passions and interests into one role. I like to think it's a dream job within the dream job. Working at a place like Interscope Capital is a dream job, but to be able to focus on connections between our artists and music, and specifically in the sports and gaming space, is an extra layer to the dream job, from a kid who grew up loving sports, loving music, loving film and TV, and the ways that they intersect. It's pretty incredible to get the chance to now impact those sectors and hopefully make the same kind of impact on people like yourself, or even people younger. And it's just really cool, like Natasha said, being able to do something like this and spread the word that roles like this do exist, and hopefully they'll continue to exist, and we'll continue to expand teams like this, so that there will be more opportunities for people who love these different spaces to make an impact.
It is a dream job. You're right. The two of you are absolutely right. From every way that you talk about it, it's distinct, it's niche, but it's really high demand. I think if people knew that these jobs they didn't have to settle for one or the other, I think a lot of people would, they would go to find these and, fill your shoes. They would try to. So for people that want to do that, obviously your jobs are protected for a little bit. I want to pivot quickly into some career advice for the college students that are watching here. What do you think would stand out in an application for them? Things that they could work on like now while they're in college, that isn't maybe something typical that you'll see on a resume, some experiences they could find. I'd love to hear whatever you guys have.
Yeah, I think aside from the internships and aside from, you know, all of those things that look great on a resume, I think being able to showcase ways that you can be creative in whatever capacity that makes sense in the time of life that you're in. I think, you know, what stands out is obviously not the norm, not the cookie cutter resume. Obviously, if you have experience in the department or in this section that you're looking to find a job in, helps a ton. Like if we were to hire on our team, if you had, you know, music industry experience, but you also had sports broadcasting, or you interned at a league, or you volunteered for an athlete's, you know, charity foundation, you know, any tie that kind of, you know, you can see that you've dipped your toe in a section that you're interested in, I think would definitely stand out, because we could see a ton of resumes across the music business, and you know, you could be in the highest music school at the highest, you know, university, but if you have that real life experience and I guess if you can show the passion of what you're interested in and landing a job in through your resume, I think that kind of speaks through.
I totally agree. I think that you know, maybe now more than ever, that there are tools available to all of us to be able to get involved, even without a job. I mean, the power we have in our pockets, between, you know, the ability to film, to create, to edit, and to share, is potent. And you know, that can in turn become a resume. If you're, you know, someone who's, I can't tell you how often it's become the most common quality of people that we hire, I feel like, in the digital marketing department are people who may be college students, sometimes even younger, who are operating, you know, massively successful artist fan pages. And that's rooted in them being genuine fans of our artists, you know, staying really dedicated and consistent with posting, with sharing content, but rooted in an authentic fandom. And before you know it, their page has been so consistent that they've grown enough of a following where here we are, the label representing that specific artist. We've noticed the work this person has put in, and we want to bring them in and make them a part of this team full time. And I think that extends. I think that can be, you know, that can translate to something in the sports and gaming space just as effectively. You know, as I mentioned, my role specifically is kind of all about the content surrounding sports and gaming that lives in short form, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, what have you. And I am reaching out and talking to, you know, young people aspiring to get into a similar role all the time, because they're putting out sports edits that use our music. They are creating content that's using our music that's, you know, going really viral online. And that, you know, may or may not necessarily make it onto an official resume. But in so many ways, they're already doing the job. And, you know, that is something that I know that we value at the label. And there's sort of no better way, right, to write it down on a resume than just to show what you've done and to continue to do it. And then the last thing I'll say is, you know, even outside of all of that, my main advice to anyone getting into any of these industries is always just get involved. You know, it can be really easy to, you know, come up with the dream job and create the dream role, but it's not always available. It may not even exist. The key is really getting involved and getting your foot in the door, whether it's a big established company, whether it's a smaller up and coming startup, you know, style. Getting experience at a company is everything. It's how you learn, it's how you grow. So my main advice is always just get involved. Don't let that one, you know, scope of the dream job hold you back from taking other opportunities.
I would also just add quickly to that, to finish it off, like if you're in a room, if you're in a meeting, if you're in, you know, a building, always have something to say. Like if you're taking space in a room, make sure that you can contribute, because I think you don't put that on a resume, but people will clock that and remember it. If you're able to contribute to a conversation, whether it's good or bad, not every idea is a good idea, but if you're able to kind of show that forefront thinking and just confidence, I think that sets you apart immensely.
Very well put, Natasha. And Miles, to your point of the fan accounts, the more and more conversations I'm having in the industry, it's crazy how these are. It directly shows the translation of you're going to dedicate a lot of time into these artists. Down the line, you can fill a spot in a record label to do the same thing. And it's great to even have those connections, whether you hire them or not, because you have these direct outputs to literally these super fans, which is one of the biggest growing scenes in the music industry. So, I do want to transition a little bit into a different topic. We spoke a bit about how fast the music and the sports industries work. I mean, a meme can go viral overnight from any of the leagues, or a Call of Duty update overnight could change everything. So, what do you guys do to stay sharp and make sure you're on top of all these? What's your routine or any must follow sources to make sure that you're staying on top of all these trends?
Well, we don't sleep that much, I guess, right? There's no time for it. No, I think, at least just speaking for myself and the role that I fill specifically around the team, I think it's being in a way more intentional with my scroll. What used to be the proverbial doom scroll, starting the day, ending the day, just mindless. I've tried to dial in. I've tried to focus. I'm constantly scanning social media sites where they're using our songs, where they're using our kind of newest releases or trending tracks. Staying on top of tracks that are trending in general can be super helpful and help facilitate another conversation or another content collaboration. So, of course, social media. And then I would say, the basic outlets for both music and sports and kind of culture in general, right? There's the music outlets that are the Billboards, the Rolling Stones, even a Variety, a Deadline, Hollywood Reporter. There's the sports outlets, be it ESPN, Sports Business Journal. Then there are a couple niche outlets that cover both and love to kind of dig into the intersection, whether that's, the Ringer does a great job of it. Puck is a more recently launched news outlet that covers all these different kind of interesting crossover points. But yeah, I think that's trying to check in on all those different sources pretty much every single day, just to make sure we're not missing, any easy wins, whether it's stuff that's happening organically or things that are, opportunities that are low hanging fruit that, just being aware of can be what leads to executing on something.
Natasha, do you have any special sources?
Yeah, I think my Instagram Explore page has formulated itself to feed me everything that I need to see. No, but I think like the best market research comes from like watching the games and watching how these networks are formulating their programming and what they're talking about and what they're featuring. And I think that's a great tool to kind of see like, okay, this is, you always want to reach that network's producer and get through to them and be like, this artist makes sense or this song makes sense. And they're going to be like, well, why? This has worked forever. Why would we change it? So I think watching how these networks, specifically when it comes to like watching sports games, go about their business and how they produce their shows, just gives us the easiest insider on what they're listening to and what they're paying attention to. So then we can go to them with better catered pitches on, here's the context as to why this song works, or here's the context as to why this artist naturally aligns with, whatever game, whatever tournament's going on. And we're constantly feeding our partners with information as well. Like if we're seeing something move in the digital space, that's catching fire, like a lot of the time, sometimes we'll see like a Sports Center or Bleacher Report pick it up, and we just collect all of that information and feed it to the people that need a bit more education. So it's a constant kind of like push and pull of us watching what our partners are doing alongside, what information can we feed them to get them to listen.
Yeah, so being very familiar with the product is, the utmost importance. And then productive scrolling. Again, as a social media rep, that's just, you have to train your social media to be at least somewhat helpful to you and make sure it's, you can justify scrolling because, great ideas come from that. And you can monitor what your competitors and also just the other people in your industry are doing. Excuse that background audio. But Yeah, I want to move on to another different topic that I've had. This can be, you guys can take it however you'd like. I want to hear about a recent project or experience that you're really proud of. We spoke about the Tyrese Halliburton one, but maybe a different one, or maybe one that's in the near future that you're working on right now, if you're allowed to say. But either works. So, Miles, we can start with you if you want.
Sure. I mean, it's been a busy few months in my world since football season started, both college and professional. Obviously, the basketball season has since started. So it's busy in that games being played means that there are content opportunities to be created and collaborations to occur. So we've done a bunch this season, again, across levels, teams, etc. One that in particular that was really exciting that reacted really well online was a collaboration between Ryan Williams, star wide receiver for the University of Alabama, one of the 2 or 3 cover athletes for NCAA College Football 26, coming out of a massive performance earlier this season. Gosh, I want to say against Tennessee. I don't remember exactly who their opponent was, but he had a massive game. He had a couple highlight plays that made the rounds. Everyone picked it up, juked a player like off the field, essentially on his way to scoring a touchdown. I worked really closely with the University of Alabama's content team to create a highlight, which we then placed Shot Callin, which is a track which is still trending. It was really trending at the time from our artist NBA Youngboy, who is signed to Capitol Records. We then facilitated a collaboration post between the top NBA Youngboy fan page, which is the Never Broke Again LLC page, which I believe has over 2 million followers on Instagram. We created the highlight in less than 24 hours. We fed it back to Ryan through the team and then facilitated the collaboration post. So the day after the game, when everyone is posting this highlight, Ryan, the player himself, in collaboration with not NBA Youngboy, who, can be tricky at times when it comes to, the social media posting aspect, but again, his highest followed official fan page did a collaboration post that highlighted it, that used the track, had several million views, amazing engagement across the board, which was a really cool kind of real-time example. It's an expression we use all the time, is a real-time sync or a real-time moment. And it's to what Natasha said in her previous answer. We have to be tapped in on what's happening in the sports world. What are the storylines? What are the narratives? What are the big plays, big players, big moments that we can use to turn into something that lives online, that incorporates one of our songs, that, again, either matches the narrative or perhaps it juxtaposes that narrative. That's where the creativity and the fun kind of lives. But anyways, yeah, the Ryan Williams example with NBA Youngboy was one from this season that worked really well.
That's so cool.
One of my favorite projects that I've worked on, and I hope we get to continue to keep the business, is the Starting Five documentary on Netflix. It was their second year this year, but the first year, the producers came to us and really trusted us to kind of curate the music for the series. It was heavily Interscope Capital artists, and it was fun to put on my music supervisor hat. We're pitching all the time, but they gave us, cuts of scenes that obviously, the public didn't get to see until the show came out, but we were able to kind of see the storylines of each player, and they would come to us asking what we thought worked best within the scene, with the emotion they were trying to convey, with the energy that they were trying to bring. I think the first year we were able to place around 20 tracks that are just belong to Interscope Capital for the first season of Starting Five. And then they had a premiere that we brought our artists out to. That was like a fun full circle moment for sure. And then this past season, I don't know how they chose their athletes, but they chose well, because they had SGA and Tyrese as 2 of the 5 who both ended up being at the finals. So it was cool to see that journey happen. Knowing whilst, like, just to tie back to the Rob 49 What the Helly campaign that we ran, knowing that Tyrese was a Starting Five player, I just made sure to, I created a PDF document of every every media that picked up what was happening around the song and the team, and I just kept feeding it to Starting Five, and ended up with a couple of really great placements of the song. You know, the series came out in October, and that moment happened in April, May, June. So that was fun to kind of see the through line of a real-time moment ending up in a really, really great sync. The Starting Five documentary is amazing, and the team's so much fun to work with. That's always something that we look forward to being a part of.
I could probably listen to the two of you share your highlight reel of the different collaborations that you have and just be in awe about all of them. But for sake of hitting different topics, we'll say that for another time. I want to know how both of you measure success in your respective worlds departments. So whether that's, how many streams that you get from something, or merch sales, are you tracking certain analytics, or do you just say, hey, LeBron posted this song, that's really cool, take it at that? What do you guys do?
It's kind of a little bit of everything that you just said. Over the past couple years, our merch strategy, our D2C strategy, has been something that the entire company is extremely hyper-focused on, something that the sports and gaming department hadn't really dabbled in up until a couple years ago. We've been able to create, deals with major leagues and UMG to where we're now an official licensee of the league, and we can use our own vendors to produce merch. So that's been an incredible lever that we've been able to exercise the past couple years. I think obviously, yes, if LeBron posts using our music, or, taking a photo with one of our artists, absolutely, that is kind of a non-monetary, tangible, level of metrics that we look at, especially in Miles's lane that he's in. But yeah, social conversation that drives consumption. Obviously, that's what we want our bottom line to be hit, and streams to be had. But in our department specifically, since we're not, pushing a song specifically at Spotify or at Apple, we're hoping that a sync moment is that special where it bumps. Anytime we release an emote in Fortnite, we see a consumption spike. So that's definitely what we look at. We look at merch revenue that we're able to bring in, obviously sync revenue, but social chatter is huge. Miles, I don't know if you want to give a couple examples that you've seen on your end.
Yeah, no, I think Natasha hit it perfectly. The North Star in everything we do is all about discoverability, and it's about trying to impact consumption, right? At the label, that's our business, is music streaming, it's merchandise sales, it's product sales. So anything and everything that we can do that drives to that is obviously a win. I'll say in the content space, it's in a lot of ways, it's about scalability. It's about volume and trying to get as much out there as possible, and see what reacts and where it reacts. And then as we track it, even if it's the basic of what's moving online, what's getting a lot of views, what's getting a lot of engagement, we can take that and then find ways to synergize with our internal team. Oftentimes the digital marketing team, the social media team, the viral marketing team, which are sort of constantly evolving within the label. But how can they get involved? How can they impact the work that we're already doing and these moments that we're creating, whether they're online, whether it's a merch collab that Natasha's created, and find ways to pull levers that we own, whether it's pages that we own and operate, fan pages that we own and operate, getting our artists directly to engage with certain content or certain moments. Those are all wins. We consider those all wins, and they can be informed by data that we're tracking on the front end. And then it's always exciting to see that consumption spike on the streaming end or on the sales end afterwards.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of this also translates into establishing more super fans, because I think that's one of the most important things. And I know there's definitely some crowd that exists for both the sports and the music world. And if you can get a super fan of both of them, I mean, it's a great customer. So another thing I want to talk about is, we've talked a lot about NFL, NBA, even college. And if we have time, we can talk a little bit more about college. But there's new sports, I think, that have been taken over since maybe the quarantine era. Pickleball has become so big. F1 has become something that has been marketed like crazy. Is there any certain strategies to focus on these emerging sports?
100%. I think I mentioned before, there's no sport that we don't touch. Obviously, we have, you know, the tentpole NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, all of those things that are kind of our day to day. But F1 saw a huge bump when that series dropped on Netflix, and that had always been a personal career goal of mine, is to do a campaign with F1. They're such a monstrosity of a company that, you know, they don't need us, we need them. So it was really like, how do we find the right inroads? How do we find the right people? How do we have the right artists that's appealing to the world of F1? You know, like, you think of F1 as kind of like the umbrella, and then under you have all the teams, and then you have all of the managers of the teams, you have all of the drivers. So like, us trying to navigate what entry point made sense. We did, when Camila Cabello released her album CXOXO a couple summers ago, it was her love letter to Miami. It was releasing around the same time as the Miami Grand Prix. We were able to, you know, we had these grandiose ideas that we were able to kind of make happen. It was one of like the best stories that I think I could ever tell of my career. It's one of my most favorite things I was ever a part of. We took Camila to Miami. We linked up with Lewis Hamilton, who's, you know, a legend of himself. He's incredible to watch his journey, his story, just the person he is. It was such a special moment to see him want to lean into what we had to say. We took him to a studio, you know, a few nights before the race, and it was him and Camila in the studio, and she was just playing him her unreleased album, and they were going back and forth. He makes music. He loves music. He was asking her questions. It was just like I was in the corner of the studio, and in my head, I'm just like, what am I doing here? How did I find myself here? Like, this is like the coolest room I think I've ever been in. And then, you know, we were in album promo mode. She was teasing tracks. She was putting out these album trailers. Lewis and his team were kind enough to lean in to where we did a police escort from one location over to a private track that Lewis drove Camila in. We had a private escort on the freeway with Lewis leading it. And that was my first police escort. And that was a crazy one to be in because Lewis loves to drive fast. And then we go to this private track, and he's just like ripping around with Camila, and we're shooting the content. And, you know, we go to the race later that afternoon, and she's a superstar. She was so good with the media. She was saying hi to everybody, doing all of the right interviews, shaking hands with all of the right people. And that entire weekend just turned into such a cornerstone of that album campaign. And we used one of the videos for her songs. That was the video that we basically shot with Lewis that morning. And it turned into one of like our little album trailers. So that was our first little dip in the water of F1. And it was such a great experience. And since then, we've just been trying to find, you know, new and innovative ways to work with them, because they've been great partners. You know, with the World Cup coming up, that's a huge focus of ours. Winter Olympics is happening in January. Street league skateboarding is something that we've worked with over the past summer. I think action sports is a huge focus for us, and certain artists that kind of live in that vein. So long story short, yes, all of those kind of more non-traditional sports are huge lanes of opportunity for us that we try to capitalize on when it makes sense.
And out of curiosity, I think with some of these other sports, with the big national associations and leagues, I feel like they're pretty easy to tailor to, in terms of most of the audience could resonate with like a very specific song. But when we start to get into these bigger, more national or international sports, it must be very difficult to find a song that will resonate with all these different audiences. Or do you pick different songs for different age groups and kind of focus them?
I think luckily we have a lot of global artists. So, you know, we have the luxury of being able to tap into both Interscope and Capital rosters. So, you know, there's not a lack of talent for us to go to these partners and be like, hey, we want to work with you. Obviously, in doing so, we want, you know, whatever product comes out of it to feel authentic and to not feel forced and to not feel, you know, like super fabricated, because that's not what we do here. So I think, yeah, making sure that whatever pitch goes out to those more global partners is it's the right name, it's the right, it's the right idea, and those don't come super easily. We have to really put thought and strategy behind it. But we're able to go to our partners with artists like Karol G and J Balvin or Rolling Stones and Paul McCartney. Like it's crazy that we're able to have access to those names, and it's appealing to partners. So it makes the conversation a little easier, but it's got to be right.
Yeah, and you'd be missing out on such a brilliant chance to fuse the two if you didn't. And again, what a lineup of artists to be able to market to them. Another thing that I'm really interested in talking about is, and again, a job like the music industry and the sports industry, there's no 5 days a week. I know it's 7 days a week, and there's every hour of the day. So how much are you always, there's no hour that you're not responsive, because that's how it works. A lot of sports teams go into the late nights. Is it, always prioritizing? How do you find that balance?
I think the balance is very, very, very important for longevity in a role. I think, to not speak for Miles, but we both love what we do. So it makes the late nights and the weekends a little easier. But you're right. Sports are happening around the whole entire calendar year. There's sports played on Thanksgiving. There's sports played on Christmas. So I think it's like, you draw the line when, this can maybe wait until after the holiday, or this can wait until next week. But also I think we are very aggressive, and we want as much opportunity that's, that comes through our inbox and comes through our phone. So if it's a text that comes at midnight, we'll deal with it. If it's a last minute courtside request to make the artist feel happy, we're going to do it, but balance is extremely important. I think you have to draw the line somewhere. And if your mental is not in it, you can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah, I think Natasha nailed it. I think we know, well, if we didn't, we now know what we got ourselves into. This is an industry, a team, a company that runs on passion. We're in the passion industry. So if you don't have the passion to stay up late on nights, work extra, for a project, respond at the odd hours on the weekends when you're away, sometimes that is a part of it. And as Natasha said, there's also a matter of boundaries. There's a matter of setting lines and knowing yourself, and knowing if and when you need something, you need time, or when to prioritize something. But it's a very passionate group, but we're also a human group. And the team that Natasha and I work with are they're great human beings, and they're very understanding of if and when someone needs a break, if and when someone needs time, needs help, support, whatever it may be. So that certainly makes it easier to balance things out when you're surrounded by a supportive team.
Yeah, it's definitely the standard to be putting in those extra hours, and it always comes. It's always beneficial, and you're going to deliver these products that no other company will. And that's how you reach those dreams. Speaking of, we have another wonderful question in the chat from Ari, named Twin. Do you guys have any goals or reach partnerships or any ideas that you hope to make happen in the near future?
I think on the horizon, LA All-Star in February is a big one on our list. I think obviously the Olympics, the World Cup, those are kind of like huge things that are coming to our city in LA and coming to the States. Those are our main focuses right now, I think, in the sports space, at least on like the marketing and sync activation side. That was a short answer, but those were big answers. I'll throw it to Miles on what your goals are.
Huge. Those are huge answers, right? I mean, those kinds of tent poles are fertile ground, if you will, for us to try and farm and create opportunity out of. So I guess on a slightly smaller scale, and kind of to dip into, Ari, what you were talking about and related to college sports, but certainly as the year turns, and even before we get to March Madness, which is always an incredible opportunity for us to find moments to integrate music into. There's the college football playoff, which will be happening here soon. That provides a lot of really interesting opportunity for players to post, for players to share content, for teams to share content, for networks and broadcasts and streamers to incorporate music into their shows. So we're definitely looking at, who we can partner with. As I mentioned before, volume, as much volume as we can, when and where it's right. We can't shoehorn the wrong music in. It has to be the right kind of organic fit. But I think leveling up, the athlete partnerships across the board is a huge goal, and finding ways to be, more consistent with the same players, finding the right tentpole players to create a cadence with, and do, a more consistent collaboration post, instead of just, the one-offs and the quick turn real time, which is amazing, and we'll absolutely continue to do that. But I know part of my goal moving forward is in a way trying to structure it. It's all kind of brand new, so it's learning, or it's sort of building the plane as I'm flying it in a lot of ways. But it's definitely a goal to be sort of a more structured, more consistent collaboration and posting when and where possible.
Relatively new also is the whole NIL scene. And when you're working on some of these college partnerships, are you working more with, like, directly with NIL agents, or are you working with the schools to make these partnerships come to life?
Both. Just to jump in, Natasha, by all means, jump in if you have something to share. But in my experience working with college athletes, it's really been fascinating with the NIL era now upon us, and obviously the NCAA and schools sort of leaning into players, of course, getting paid for their performance, but also the walls sort of coming down in terms of what players and college athletes are able to do in terms of building their brand, in terms of monetizing their brand. It's been fascinating to work with. Most of the guys who I'm talking to, guys and girls across sports, across college athletics, do have representation. And sometimes it's the, larger agencies, the same agents who represent NFL professional level players. And just as often it's their classmates. It's people your age who, understand not only what those college-aged athletes are into and interested in, but finding the brands, the companies, the partners who are on that same level, and connecting those dots so that they can, create opportunities for themselves. So it's a lot of times I'm talking to an agent. Sometimes I'm talking to the teams. There are representatives now at most of these colleges who are, marketing, NIL content representatives who are facilitating the exact same kind of collabs and partnerships as a lot of those marketing agents. So yeah, there are several entry points, I should say. It's a massive space. It's a growing space, and one that we hope to cover even better as the years go on.
Wow. And, you guys both have jobs in the music industry, in the sports industry. And I didn't even ask this. Who do you guys like to listen to, and who are you fans of?
Oh man, I feel like whenever this question comes up, the answer is always who, like, we're working at the time. Like, right. Aside from that, one of my favorite artists, he does happen to be signed to Elvira and Interscope, is Black. I think he's incredible. Whenever his music doesn't necessarily work, for the lanes that we're in at the label, but I genuinely love his music so much that it's fun to kind of have an artist release on the label that I get to kind of be a fan of. Love him. One of my first favorite artists, and they always will be, is the 1975. I think they were a huge reason, I think why, a huge influence on where I ended up. So it's always fun to even though my music taste has kind of evolved over the past 7 to 10 years, it's always fun to kind of go back to that time of my life and just be thankful about it. But I listen to all types of music. I'm biased to the Interscope Capital artists because I think we're the best, but it's fun to just dive into the music that we're pushing, for sure.
Totally. Yeah, it's a similar answer for me. And that's part of the job, right? A part of our job, and part of what makes us capable is being equipped. And part of being equipped is putting in the work of listening to the music and knowing what we have in our arsenal, knowing what we have coming up, and then, using our using our knowledge of sports, the sports calendar, sports narrative, stories, etc., to try and place those in the right moments or with the right partners. So all that to say, listening to a lot of the NBA young boys, the Lil Babies, the Quavos, the Offsets, of course. And then oftentimes it's a really cool opportunity for us to get to learn about the next artists that are coming up. I mean, Tu Hollis, who signed to Interscope, is an incredibly talented artist who seems to be growing every single day. And we're finding really cool and innovative ways to incorporate him and his music into the right sporting moments with the right sporting partners, gaming as well. And, I think it even branches outside of music. Like we have, the artist Skrilla, whose song sparked the 6-7 phenomenon that is everywhere. I couldn't let this panel pass without us at least mentioning it once. But that's been so interesting for us to find cool ways to integrate him, his music, the emote, right, into all sorts of different games, all sorts of different sporting moments, with players, with teams, with leagues, etc. So yeah, we're both listening to everything. We cleanse the I'll cleanse the palate with, an Olivia Dean or something that's a little, less maybe sports related per se. Not to say that it isn't, but I'm trying to stay up on what we have out in the market and what we have coming out soon, so I can do my job as best as possible.
Yeah, there's definitely a unique fusion where you can find Olivia Dean into a sports edit. There's always a world for that.
Right.
You touched on this, but any other artists that should be on the lookout for 2026? That's my last question for y'all.
That's a good question. Think of what we've got.
Sorry, I got some background audio. I mean, I think Hollis, right? Tu Hollis absolutely is poised to have a pretty massive year. I think on the Capitol side, we have some really exciting young acts. We have a singer-songwriter, Sienna Spyro, who has really started to react online and has a, dare I say, an Adele sort of quality to her songwriting and to her singing, that I know the label is super excited about. But I don't know, Natasha, are there others?
I'm really excited about Cat's Eye. I just think the year and some change that they've had has been so exciting to watch. I think the music's amazing. I think the girls are amazing. I'm just excited to see them blow up more than they already have. They're on a trajectory like nothing else, and they're probably like my artist for next year that I'm excited to see what happens. I think they're incredible.
It's happening. It's due.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have time for today. But I want to thank you, Natasha and Miles. You were awesome, super helpful. And the chat, thank you for the amazing questions throughout the entirety of this hour. But again, you guys have been an incredible duo. It's been a pleasure myself to interview you, and everybody in the chat, I'm sure, and every viewer is very thankful as well. Remember, all of the episodes, all full episodes of Behind the Business will be in the 3.5 YouTube channel. Any final remarks?
And thank you, Ari. This was a great conversation. I think just keep watching sports, keep listening to the music that you hear during sports, because that's what our jobs are.
Ditto. Appreciate you, Ari. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Bye.